I was not offered a gavel, but it is. I will kick things off here. It falls to me to do the welcome this evening, so I do want to thank everyone for being here, both members of the Parks and Recreation Board, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, as well as the Community Advisory Committee, and to Josephine, who was one of each, so she counts as two people. But again, thank you all, and to everyone else who came here as well. I appreciate the fact that you guys are here, and I hope you like what you see. Same is true for you guys as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of different items. You were passed out an agenda tonight, so this is of course the welcomes. We're going to do some introductions of those that are going to be presenting to you this evening. Go into a little bit of what our objectives for tonight happen to be. And then my favorite part, or my soon-to-be favorite part, is of course the discussion on what was presented tonight, and to make sure that it actually does fall in line with what the vision of the CAC was and what the vision of the RAB was. You guys are, of course, you guys hear what's going on in the community. You guys know, you've heard for years. The Grant Advisory Board Committee has been putting together a vision for this building probably since some of us were even born. And we want to make sure that what we're presenting falls in line and meets that vision. Likewise, with the CAC, you guys did an impressive deep dive on this topic, on what was feasible, on what was right, on what felt was appropriate for the city. So I think you guys are the best people to be some of the first ones to see how we've taken all of your feedback and and how Stantec has actually created a concept around it. This is essentially you guys like a focus group. So there's things that are probably going to change out of this meeting, things that could shift around, or the way we talk about it could be a little bit different, or the way we present things. But I'm really excited to move on to a public meeting, so we get to unveil this to the community, since it's ultimately going to be their decision on whether or not any of this comes to fruition. So you're the first to see it. Consider yourselves part of I would say the most handsome focus group ever brought together ever. But again, like I said, we're excited to bring this concept to you. And so, I don't know if you want to do some introductions, or if you guys want to go around the table. I think most of you probably ought to know each other, but if you do want to go around the table one good time and just say whether or not you're a CAC member, an RAB member, just give a general introduction. So Josephine, as our member of both, you want to kick us off?
Yes, I'm Josephine, and as you already heard, I'm a member of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and I was a member of the Citizen Committee also.
My name is Caitlin Mylan. I was part of the Citizens Advisory Committee.
I'm Lauren Robertson, a member of the CAC.
I'm Greg Patterson, Parks and Rec.
Carla Osborne, Citizens Advisory.
Jerry Holt, Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Mike Kirby, Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Kellen Kadeko, Council Liaison to Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
John Nicolari, Parks and Rec.
Ross Gavin, Citizens Advisory.
Hi everybody, I'm Dan Eskew. I'm the chairman of Berkeley Beautification Advisory Committee, and also I was on the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Melanie Stevens, and I'm part of the CAC.
Brandon Clements, working with Patrick from Stantec. I'm the project manager on the project, and there's about 6 other team members of ours who aren't here today, but Patrick and I will be sharing with you what we've been helping Darshell, Matt, and Teresa with.
And I'm Teresa McCarlton, Director of Parks and Recreation, and I'd also like to point out we have our other 3 full-time staff here. Scott Jennings, our program manager, Dan McMinn, our senior and special event manager, and Amanda Slinsarski, our office administrator. We also have Natalie Price, who runs our current top program.
Really, Matt Baumgarten. We have our deputy city manager, Darshell Strickland Love, and our new communications coordinator, Jay Grossman's here as well. Patrick and Brandon are going to represent Stantec. Stantec has been with us for the last couple of months. Like we said, taking your vision and putting pen to paper. That's probably the oldest way to say that possible. Putting fingers to keyboard is probably more modern. But to bring this to you in conjunction with our rec staff, with the feedback that we've gotten over the years, and I'll turn it over to Patrick, actually, let me do the meeting objectives. So again, I kind of ended this earlier. So some of our meeting objectives here are that we want to give you an update on the recent developments and the concept itself. We definitely want to obtain your feedback and your comments, and then also get into a discussion about what the next steps are, so that everyone in this room understands where we go from here. whether it be the public meetings, the work the council would have to do, and where we think we can land as far as the a timeline for a ballot question. So those are the things we're going to. And now, without further ado, I will hand it over to Patrick.
Thank you. I'm Patrick Calhoun. I'm an architect and a planner with Stantec. I have been a Huntington Woods resident for 15 years. I've been a Berkeley, I've worked in Berkeley for 15 years, and both kind of happened simultaneously. For those of you who've been around for a while in the city, we were originally known as Deuce Simmons Associates in the old bowling alley right there next to Taco Bell. We became part of SHW Group, a larger firm, focuses on community projects, and we're now part of Stantec. Really key to what the firm that we became part of believes in is really being integrated and part of the community. I somehow ended up living that in more ways than I could imagine because we were involved in the Berkeley Schools bond program, and my role was to help herd 75 people on that committee every couple weeks to help make some decisions. I've got a daughter who's going to graduate from Berkeley High School this year. I've got a son at North, and somewhere along the line I ended up on the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also the president of the Berkeley Area Chamber of Commerce. So given that Huntington Woods doesn't have a downtown, Berkeley is my downtown. Without further ado, our goal here today is to talk about this project in the framework of community. And actually, if someone could hit that left light switch back there, that would be wonderful. Oh, sorry, that was not part of it. Yes, that one. Thank you. Sorry, the zap was not part of it. And again, this is a preview of what we're proposing to share with the community at a larger kind of open house session, so we definitely want your feedback and input. The dictionary defines community as an interacting population of various kinds of people with a common purpose in a common place. And looking at that definition, it just kept coming back to that's really defining what we kept hearing from all the input, from the surveys, from the committees, from everything we researched about what this really needs to be about. So with that, I'm going to walk you through the conceptual design for a proposed new Berkeley Community Center. And if you think you're going to see the cool new pictures right up front, you're going to have to wait a minute for that. So we're going to walk through a basic agenda talking about what got us, the conversations and research that got us to where we are, the vision for what this space could be, and then end with really the components of what's going to, what we're proposing is going to make it up. So starting with Parks and Rec, kind of where they are today.
So a lot of you know this information. I'm not going to read from the slides, but we wanted to give you a picture of what we do currently in our facility. We think it's good. We think it's not great. We have some facility limitations. One of the things that we saw as we were going through here, as we were looking at pictures, we were looking at things that we do is how many things we can do for youth, but how limited we are to do things for teenagers, for adults, and even for seniors. So currently, you know, there's a list of a lot of the classes that we want. And one of the things that we hear all the time when people come in is, oh, I didn't know you do all of this. And, oh, I didn't know you could do this, and I didn't know you could do this. You know, we have nearly 12 special events throughout the year. We run with 5 full-time staff, and we do, you know, over 30 youth programs, a number of senior events, programs, lunches, outings. You know, we had a group of seniors, 20 seniors just went to see a Christmas Carol yesterday. We run a transportation program. We run specialty camps. This year we had over 350 different kids come through our summer day camp. That's 350 individual. It was 349 actually, so 350 just sounds like a better number. But 349 different kids, and we maxed out at about 180 on some of those days, and on other days we were averaging 165 kids. But the place that they were located was in the ice arena, as you all know, and we're limited with what we're able to do there. We're limited with what we can do in terms of ages because of the facility. But our facility is used, opened, and operated over 300 days throughout the year. It's used during the day. We have multiple birthday parties on the weekend and the evenings. Again, I can't stress enough how good I think our staff does with what we have. We just feel that it can be great and that now is the time to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I remember the first time I got a chance to meet the entire staff of Parks and Rec, and I kept waiting for the rest of the staff to come in, especially with the list of everything that they've been doing. And so to have this group be able to do that, it's pretty amazing. So we did research on really what's driving this need. For those of you who saw the earlier report that was delivered to the CAC several months ago, that contained a lot of this information. The first piece is really these buildings have been used, and they are really at the end of a lot of the components, a lot of the pieces are at the end of their useful service life. There are some challenges that go above and beyond that. The roof system on both parts of the building is at the end of its life, in some cases past. There's foundation shifting that's causing the community center building to actually sink and move, things that are really not easily repaired. And again, heating, cooling, ventilation, lighting, all of these things are, depending on which of the buildings you're in, dating from either the early 1970s all the way up through, I think, the late 1970s. Coming from that same rough era myself, things start to wear out when things get over 45 years old. The buildings are very energy efficient, and the ice arena is long past the end of its life. For an ice arena of that type, of that era, it ran a lot longer than one would be able to expect. Some of the other challenges we see are, it's a very large building and it immediately abuts a residential neighborhood with nary 10 feet between the two. So it really doesn't present a good front for what's going on when it backs up to a bunch of houses like that. When you look at the overall view, there's no visibility of the community center at all from Catalpa. It's difficult to access. Parking is insufficient, especially if there's activities going on out here and people are driving through and people are crossing across drive lanes. The way it was originally designed, for those of you who don't know, the 12 Towns drain, 7-foot diameter storm drain, runs right down Robina, hooks up to another one that goes down Oxford. It's about 20 feet down, makes it very difficult to work with the site because you can't build on top of it, but all the parking lots drain without any detention directly into that. So it creates an issue with a lot of impervious surface that drains directly into the 12-town drain every time there's a good rainstorm. When we get into the building, and this isn't really even looking at the ice arena, the building is undersized. As you can tell by challenges of storage for all the things that are being kept in there, furniture being stored out in the middle of active use space. The gymnasium, such as it is actually too low to be used as a gym. It's too small to be used as a gym, which really leads to the issue of the current building is unable to provide programming opportunities for all ages. It works well for some, but not really across the spectrum. And as part of this, there was outreach in many levels over many years. And I actually turn that back over to you.
So we'll talk a little bit about these. Obviously, the Recreation Advisory Board has been talking about a new community center and the needs of a new community center for over a decade. I mean, they started working on it probably early 2000s. And then it came to, obviously, a vote in 2009, which we'll discuss that, and moved to now. Citizens Advisory Committee studied all of the issues. They walked through the facilities, and their recommendation, as you guys know, was that the community needed a new community center, void of a pool and an arena, but a new, up-to-date, energy-efficient with 2 gym. They looked at the survey, and they listened to the information, and they looked at what other communities are doing as well. Community survey goes into that. You know, we asked people what they wanted to see in the community survey, and that all went into designing what Stantec has designed at this point. research of the similar facilities. Between staff and I, we've been in over 15 different community centers in Michigan. I've been in 12 over the past 2 years, talking to people. We've talked on the phone with people about what works. We've talked about best ways to make revenue, because that is something that we have to think about, and what really makes the most sense and what facilities work and really will be used and have a right size facility. So, when you're looking at some of these bigger communities, we don't need something that the size of Canton or Livonia has, but we've talked to, we've run the gamut on what community centers we've talked to. And then obviously our 5-year plan. I'll repeat a story that I've said often, but during our 5-year plan, we had multiple community meetings and people come to them and tell us what they want to see in their community. And I'll remember that a gentleman, and I was sitting at a table, and he said, well, I don't want to say what I really think about your center because I like you guys, and his children do things in our building. And I said, no, please tell me. And he said, well, I feel like when I walk in this community center, it feels like The Walking Dead. The truth of the matter is that he wasn't saying that we don't do a good job. This isn't our home, but in a way it is. It's our home away from home, and we love what we do, and we love the people that we service. But we do feel like everything that came from the master plan in the conversations about the community center, it was, we'd like to see, gym, we'd like to see, these different elements that we just don't have now. So I think really we used all of these different outreach and research to come up with a good plan. We also have daily conversations. All of our staff has daily conversations with people that use our community center now. So those aren't people that aren't going to use new center, because they use what we have now and what they would like to see. And I think that that's really important too, and we've been doing that for years.
So from all that research, from that input, from just having spent time over the years in the facility, one of the things that we were tasked to do was really help define a vision for this project. It's not a vision for Parks and Rec, but really focused on a vision for a new community center, a new space for the community. And it came down to just a handful of what we call success factors, and really things that answer or complete the sentence: for this project to be considered a success, it must. The things that really have to happen, both experience-wise, but also building-wise. So the first one really needed to be for all of Berkeley, to move just beyond the youth programs and the senior programs and fill that gamut. And the statement we worked out was that the new Berkeley Community Center will support all of Berkeley, a growing, changing community of over 15,000 across generations, individuals and groups, businesses, families, and friends. Really recognizing that this is for everyone who calls Berkeley home in one way or another. To be successful, it has to be able to do this. The second one is it needed to be for multiple activities. The Berkeley Community Center, to be successful, will be flexible, providing space for recreation, for gathering, for social events, for birthday parties, league play, banquets, preschool programs, and more. Spaces will be designed to serve more than one purpose, keeping the community center active throughout the day and into the evening. A room that sits empty is a room that's not successful, and the goal is to keep building it successful. To be successful, it needs to be for thriving programs. The Berkeley Community Center will encourage programs to thrive and grow, both existing programs but also new ones. Our hope is that if this is successful, that you will discover things like, we didn't know we could do that. That would be kind of the neat finishing touch. Flexible spaces will ensure that senior events, after-school activities, and art programs have what they need for success. Wellness, dance, league and sport programs will have space for first-class experiences. The goal here is that opportunities will abound to bring different groups together in new ways. It will be for visibility. The Berkeley Community Center will showcase activity, encouraging use and generating revenue. Visually connected with the outdoors, it will be a beacon to the community, highlighting the activity going on inside. Inviting spaces, both large and small, will be available for expos, private parties, and community events. And lastly, it will be for the future. The Berkeley Community Center is a long-term investment as part of a resilient community. It needs to be designed for the next 50 years. It'll be modern and inviting, durable and energy efficient. As a resilient building, one of its goals will be to minimize stormwater impact. If we have the opportunity to help solve that on that site, this would be the time to take it. In the end, it needs to be cost effective both now to build it, to maintain it, to operate it, and to program it. So with those pieces and with the research we did, projects that we've worked on in the past, and looking at the best practice facilities, we've developed a sort of a grouping of building elements. These are what we call program elements. Really speak to not just the architecture, but also the activities going on inside. And what you'll see here is the squares are actually scaled to give you an idea of how much space some of these will require. And we've got some images that I'll show you that really were inspirational images to help us kind of work through the feeling that those spaces should give. They aren't necessarily what the space will look like, but it was kind of a starting point for us. So the first piece is really looking at the common spaces, the ones that really will stitch and connect this whole project together. A welcoming lobby area that's large enough to support multiple activities, multiple events at the same time. A highly visible, welcoming reception area that can act as both a point of arrival, but also a point of control to make sure that activities are always visible. And then a meeting room space, something that will allow community members when they come in to have a space, to have a meeting, to not have to search the city, because being on a few committees, it can be really hard to find a meeting room some nights. But again, the idea that a welcome desk, a reception desk, is easily visible the minute you arrive, you've got a sense of welcome, but also has the ability for when a teen program's going on at the same time as a preschool, after-school program, that you can keep kind of an eye on what's going on as those two groups are in the building at the same time. Next is the activity rooms, really the heart of this. Multi-purpose classrooms, ones that can serve meetings, events, art programs, after-school programs, with ample storage to be able to put things away, to shift the room use throughout the day. Large enough, really large enough to hold groups 20 to 30 people depending on how you lay it out. In addition, providing dedicated space for a senior room and dedicated space for a teen room. Our goal here again is to create a sense of identity, but also create a sense of common purpose between all these different functions. The big piece, recreation community space. This really gets to the flexibility of the building. To move to a true multi-purpose two-court gymnasium, something that is a single court, full-size basketball that can be, with the drop of a divider, split into two activities so you have the ability for two simultaneous uses. That can also serve as a banquet facility for up to 250 at tables. So it's a good sized space with the adequate support to make it work. An elevated indoor walking and jogging track, as well as a small fitness center for both exercise equipment but also for exercise classes, and then a dance studio. And then just some reference images. Roughly, this is the size of space we're talking about. One of the things that it needs to provide that the current community center and the current ice arena don't provide is enough height for indoor sport activities. Volleyball seems to own the height, and if you hit things on the ceiling, it doesn't work so well. But again, fitness, wellness facility, and then a multi-purpose space that can be used as a dance studio and other activities. Staff offices, to make sure that there's a central place where that's near that reception desk with the ability to monitor what's going on and the ability to work together as a group. And again, really looking at this as the heart of the building. And then the unseen parts that are required in any project to really make the building work. A catering kitchen for serving, is not for cooking meals, but for serving meals. Locker rooms to support the gym, restrooms, two family restrooms is what we're looking at right now for either assistance or for diaper changing or for family help. A nursing room, ample storage area for both indoor and outdoor, and then the heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical equipment that's really the guts of the building that we hope you never have to look at. But we know it's important to make sure it continues to work. And then what makes this project really interesting is that how it works on the site will make a big difference as to the success of the whole thing. So we need to make sure, as we were designing this, we really set a goal of making sure that there was visible signage so people see that it's there, but also the building is visible. So if you're on Catalpa, you can see it. That would provide some distance from the homes, so it's not backing right up to that space. That there's new parking, an appropriate drop-off area, that we're managing stormwater at the same time, and that we're taking advantage of the fact that there is land there that we can't build on because of the drain, to create outdoor plaza space, a community lawn for outdoor play, outdoor games, for picnics, those sorts of things. And then really taking advantage of the fact that there's the park, there's the ball fields, there's sidewalks, there's Hurley Field, and really using this building to take a bunch of somewhat disconnected activities and really let this act as that hub. So the result of this, as we've worked through the design, is approximately 38,000 square feet, similar in size to the complete area of the current space. In order to fit on the site and to work around that 12-ton drain, there are parts of the building that are a 2-story building, so really minimizing that footprint. Fully ADA accessible, both levels. It's a requirement, and we want to make sure that it's more than just there, that it works, and it works in a welcoming way. That it's secure for after-school programs, so again, that controllability is important. That it's energy efficient, meets all modern building codes and energy codes, which have just changed and become even more important to hit. That it has views to the outdoors and is visible from Catalpa. So a couple of the important parts before we get to the images. First of all is schedule. If funding is approved, this little orange dot right here is where we are today. And the tentative early schedule right now is if funding is approved in May, that schematic design, that first step in really taking this to a buildable set of documents, would start immediately moving forward through site plan approval, design, development, construction documents, bidding, and construction, the big one here. Potentially puts a move-in around May or June of 2020. One of the challenges that was posed when we brought forward all the different options for the review earlier was if it's built on the site of the existing community center is out of commission completely from 2019 through 2020, which is not a desirable thing, and that actually led to some conversations about, is that the right spot to do it? And our goal here is to do it actually, and you'll see in a second, across Robina, to make sure that the community center remains open in its entirety until construction is completed, the new space. Then it comes down, parking lot goes in, and everybody's already moved over into the new building. The budget target for this right now, we are estimating, assuming inflation and for that same schedule, so we're trying to tack in the costs that we know would come in at that point. And I'll go through this really briefly. There's construction costs, that's the cost of the building. And then there's the project cost, which really gets to all the other things that aren't physically part of the building, but are still an important part of the total cost of this. Given the current construction industry right now, the building and the site, that physical work, we're estimating at approximately $10 million. When you add in design contingency and construction contingency, and this is for changes that may come out later in the process, or unforeseen conditions on the site, unforeseen conditions in the industry, and then handling the fees and the overhead costs that are associated with that, you get a total construction cost of $13.35 million. The owner soft costs, 1.875 estimated right now. That's equipment, new furnishings, things that don't fall under that contract. It would be permits and fees, working with the county, things like that. Right now, we're estimating a total project cost of $15.225 million. And that's the whole enchilada there that would cover the complete project. So within that framework, I'll start walking through the design. And again, think back to both the vision, but also the building components as we walk through this. Just so you've got a perspective of where things are now. Senior Center, Community Center, Arena, old Studio Ice, Main Ice. Here's Robina with the 12-ton drain that runs right down the middle of everything. And then the tennis courts and the 2 parking lots. And as I mentioned, the proposal is to build the new Berkeley Community Center on the west side of Robina. The tennis courts remain, which was an important thing to do here. And the goal is to take it from being really a hidden piece to really a visible amenity that acts as sort of the hub to all these activities, from the park all the way over to the tennis courts. As one drives down Robina, or drives even down Catalpa, and I've driven this a lot in the evening when the tennis court is lit, you would be able to see the building at the back of the tennis court. The idea is it's very open on the end to allow visibility of what's going on. A single layout parking lot rather than the split. The benefit of this rearrangement is it will allow you to actually, for outdoor activities, you can close off one lot, you can close off the other lot, you can close off both lots without that road that runs kind of between the two right now. The plan is the main access, entry and exit is still Robina off of Catalpa. In order to handle any kind of emergencies or to handle the crush of vehicles that every Friday during football season, the ability for limited access exits, gated controlled exits that can be typically left shut but open for certain events at the end of Sunny Knoll and then back out onto Oxford where the ice equipment currently is. So the Berkeley Community Center, again, sits here right adjacent to the concession stand, and where 12-ton drains is, I'll show you a little close-up on this in a minute, really creating a community outdoor plaza and a community lawn that really lives at the heart of this whole area. One of the neat things is we really think this will work well for things like Berkeley Days, for other outdoor events. It makes the community center more of a part of that, and it also allows just for easier control of that parking lot. Kind of zooming into the building, so if you're coming and you park or you're getting dropped off here at the entry, walking across this entry plaza, this is the north entry, the main entry, and this is the secondary entry here off the south that connect in on the inside. So coming in, and I'll read these out because it's a little hard to read the words here. You're seeing the arrows pointing into the 2 entries. This purple area here is the proposed building commons. That's a kind of common community space. I'm going to use this rather than standing in front of the picture anymore. And the idea is you come in and the first thing you see right in the center of this whole thing is a reception control desk. Welcome desk where you check out equipment, and again, the eyes on the whole community center to keep an eye on things. We've intentionally designed it with a lot of windows from that common space into the conference room of this meeting space, into the senior room, into the teen room, into these 2 classroom spaces. So there's good visual control. Different activities can occur at the same time, but also a view into the corner of the gymnasium, not just for control, but for the ability to, again, show off the activity that's going on inside the building. And as I said before, in the evening when there's volleyball or basketball leagues going on, the ability to see what's going on as you come down Robina or as you're driving past on Catalpa. We've even left a little area here where a half-court tennis court can be set up for practice. Once you've arrived, you've checked in, you said, like basketball, we're going to go shoot some hoops. You You head west down this corridor here, toilet rooms and shower locker area to support the activities in the gym, a family toilet room and a nursing room right there as well. The beauty of this is actually that parents can come in and do one activity and there's good visibility for seeing what their kids are doing elsewhere in the building. Go right into the gym. It can either be a single court gym or curtain drop down. The plan is for bleachers so parents can watch the activities going on in the space. There is ample gym storage to support this, whether it's being used as a gym or being used for banquet use. Catering, warming kitchen, storage area here as well. Once you kind of get out of this core support area, coming back down here, the admin, support staff area, offices, meeting space, workspace, and storage right off that reception control center, so it's really easy to monitor what's going on in the whole building. Ample general and outdoor storage to support activities out on the lawn. And then coming back here again, 2 classrooms that can be used again for after-school programs, for art programs, senior programs, whatever activities. We've put in a single-person toilet room between the 2 to allow those programs to use that space without having kids wandering around the building. Again, shared storage to support all of this. And the hope here is that the teen room and the senior room will be able to actually kind of extend their activities out into this common space. This doesn't want to be just a corridor. This really wants to be part of the activities. If you're here for jogging or for the fitness center, there'll be stairs and an elevator right behind that reception desk where you can head right up to the 2nd level. And on that 2nd level, you'll arrive in a little lobby area with the dance studio immediately off of it. And the neat things about both the dance studio and the indoor track, 2-lane indoor walking jogging track, is both of these will have windows that open into that common space. So again, you're showcasing the activities going on. Moving beyond that, a fitness center area, mix of equipment, but also open floor space for different activities, with restrooms up there as well. And right now, we've even got a window in so you could watch the activities going on at Hurley Field from the building. You'll be up high enough to see right over those bleachers. Heckle the visitors when they're in town. And again, an indoor track area that feeds right off of that fitness center area. We love this stuff, and this is way past pen and paper. This is actually that space rendered. So this is the 2-court gymnasium. You've got the elevated walking jogging track up here. Again, this space is large enough to support multiple volleyball games at the same time, basketball games going at the same time, with a view directly into the lobby space, but also that view toward the tennis courts in Talbot. The nets can be swung up, tables can be moved in. This becomes a great banquet space, a great indoor activity space. Coming around outside into that common space, an opportunity to really showcase all the community programs. This is right at the main entry as you come in. Looking down this direction, you can see that reception desk right here. So that, again, a great point of welcome whether you're coming from the parking or you're walking over from the park. Views, bringing daylight into this space, views into each of those classrooms over here, each of these spaces. And then a clear path going up to that 2nd level for all those activities up there. Again, the hope here is that this is as much of the experience as all the rooms it supports. So zooming in a little closer, one of the neat features that we're looking at on this is this entry plaza special event drop-off area. Normal drop-off would be right out here, where Rovina bends south to line up with Sunny Knoll. But for special events, for the senior bus, for different activities, the idea would be that this is actually pedestrian paving, but it's designed to be drivable. So if there's a bus that needs to do pickup or drop-off, the ability to actually have limited access to be able to pull up and get very close to the building. These little rectangles here are actually proposed benches that act as protection so nobody can accidentally drive up and hit the building. Out here in front, a large community lawn space for bocce, for lawn bowling, for picnicking, for you name it, whatever outdoor activities you want to have out there, that then connects over into this larger area, right over into the park. One of the neat things about this plaza space is the ability to just put furniture out here. And actually have people, they'll come here for lunch. And also use it for outdoor activities. Our hope is that if you've got something major going on inside, like Taste of Berkeley, that you could actually spill that right outside as well and really use this as the community center, not just that room right there. And onto my favorite image of this whole thing. This is what it would look like upon arrival. You show up, you get dropped off, you park, you come up here, there's community activity, there are events, outdoor games going on all throughout the day. A view into the activities, you can see both into the gym, but also up to the running track, into that common space. The opportunity to, again, really showcase what makes the community unique. And my favorite little freebie that we discovered as we were working through this, as the sun would set in the west behind the building, this wall is going to get dark early. Set up chairs out here. People bring lawn chairs, blankets, whatever, and have outdoor movies projected right onto the building. It's something that's no extra cost. It was like, that's a really neat opportunity to take advantage of what would normally be a large blank wall. This is what we're proposing to share with the community, and it really comes down to, again, these 5 key elements, that it has to be for all of Berkeley, it has to be for multiple activities, it has to be for thriving programs, to take what works now and make it better, and take the stuff that you haven't even dreamt of yet and make it possible. It's got to be visible. Open that building up, open the excitement of what's going on up to share it. And it has to be for the future. This has got to be something that's going to serve Berkeley long past any of the time that we're here. So with that, thoughts, comments, questions, rose petals, accolades, good choice.
A couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
Will the tennis courts remain?
Yes, that was no, there was like, we had a couple proposals that reduced them.
No, if we touch them, we lose our
Yes.
state funding with us. We did the grant, yeah, the grant.
Right, the half-court tennis wall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other question is the signage. It is going to be out where, it's going to be visible. Will it in any way interfere or bother the neighborhood?
The answer, I would say, is we're going to have to make it so it doesn't. That's again, we've got to take into account that Catalpa is not just it's a secondary street, it's also a residential street. But there's, and I wish I had the picture. One of the things that our lead designer proposed as a kind of a neat idea, and I don't have the photograph he used as an example, it would be to possibly have a planted, plant like ivy, have a planted wall with the sign kind of built into that. It would be lower, and it actually could be part of the front of the tennis courts. But you've got a great front space out there. I drive by, you don't think of that front lawn doesn't do a whole lot. It's got that one sign in it. It doesn't really do a whole lot beyond that. There's an opportunity to make that part of the welcoming, especially at the end of that. Do it sometime in the evening when it's not freezing cold. Drive down Catalpa when the tennis courts are lit. And there's always a spot in these projects where I start to imagine the future building, and I've already done that here. Imagine that light coming from the building. The building will be just the other side of those tennis courts, and it will be visible from Catalpa. Yes.
Does everything include like the landscaping, like the cost that you mentioned there, like the design and the plantings that you kind of showed in some of the aerial views?
Yes. Including, we did put into here the cost of, as we understand what it's going to require right now, cost to manage the stormwater from those parking lots. Which, while that's limited to just this site, will do its part to help minimize the impact of this on everybody else around it. Yes?
Yeah, so I guess in that same vein, what opportunities are there for, or that have been contemplated for sort of like green, sustainable uses, purposes, with this building, both interior and exterior? So I'm stuff like even, rain gardens on top of that smaller step down building, on the roof of that, or permeable parking lots or anything like that. Kind of what's been the...
We've run through a number of those exact items. We talked about permeable paving. We talked about a planted roof. The planted roof cost, as it sits right now, pushes that number higher than we felt comfortable pushing it. Okay. It's not to say it's not possible, but right now that's not in the budget.
Okay.
But when it comes to things like permeable paving, one of the challenges with Berkeley and everywhere else around here is the clay soils. Permeable paving doesn't like that. So, there we are. But the stormwater retention has to be designed to make it as close to as if those parking lots were never there. So it really slows down the water drainage. When we put in our new parking lot at our office, I don't know, for those of you who saw it, or when Taco Bell went in, these huge underground plastic drums that are designed to hold all that water and then let it out very slowly. But and actually, to wrap that up, from a sustainable standpoint, from a green standpoint, new energy codes, new heating and cooling codes have come into play in the last year that are requiring a much higher level of efficiency. Our goal in every design we do, whether it's a large project or a small project, is minimal use of materials that have off-gassing issues, minimal use of materials that have high impact on the environment. So the goal is that this would be constructed in that sustainable way.
Thank you.
I guess I have a lot of questions. I'll just start with one. This is about the cost of it. Are we starting to think ahead about how we maintain this as well from day one, so we don't get to an issue of like 10 years down the road that, we had done this year one, we wouldn't have had to pay for it at year 10. Is that part of the cost of that $15 million to kind of set up that kind of revenue for that?
That project cost is for the construction of this. The long-term operational costs, that's a separate pot of money. The goal here, as far as an architect, what we can do to minimize that cost down the road is the durability of the materials, brick, block, stone, that touchable surfaces are durable surfaces. That the system is designed to run as close to 100% efficient all the time, which is where you're really at full load all the time. The hope is that we've got the money available with the cost of the heating and cooling equipment. If as much of it goes inside the building as possible, which makes it last longer. If it does have to be rooftop equipment, which is less first cost but has a higher long-term cost, that we will, because of the new energy codes, there's a ton in flux right now. But it's understanding that those need to be, again, designed for maintainability. If you look at a lot of the systems in the existing space, they're modified residential. They really weren't designed for spaces that large. This would be equipment that's designed specifically for this type of space, this type of scale, not going for the... Our goal is not to go for the cheapest first cost, because that invariably ends up being higher cost down the road. It's also understanding that part of this will be knowing that systems have an expected lifespan. Some last 20 years, some last 30, some last 40. And it's making sure that we've done our part, that the city can then maintain this.
And so from a budgeting standpoint, one of the things we talked to Stantec about from the beginning was we didn't come to the 50-year mark accidentally. We would set up the funds and we would budget for for there being a crossover point where the money that we save by not having to invest in the building and some of the, not having to do as extensive of maintenance in the first years gets put away, and so that it can be there when we need to start changing over some of these things at the end of its useful life. We didn't want it to be 50 years because it's 25 years too old. We wanted it to be 50 years on purpose. So the building gets you so far, planning gets you the rest of the way, and that's what we've been committing to that.
Oh, yes.
How many parking spaces does that design have?
Where did we end up? I'm trying to remember.
I think we ended up just shy of 200.
200,
Just shy of,
yeah.
How many do we have right now? I don't remember.
I want to say it's 150 with the arena and both together. I'm not exactly.
So we're getting more parking substantially, I mean, really.
And it's all connected too, which I think is.
Where is that?
So let's like spill over on Friday nights.
Yeah.
Fall.
I feel it's just awkward right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
This is my parking spot Friday nights.
And this has slow down points and stopping points and areas where you have to kind of be really aware of pedestrians. And I was saying earlier today, it's the two spots are really easy to close them down now.
Yeah.
Because right now that first parking lot you come to adjacent to the tennis courts,
Yeah.
it's just free flow.
Yeah.
Right in and out of there, and it's maddening.
Yeah, it's very.
Well, especially a drop off and pick
Yeah.
up for Anderson.
Oh,
Yeah, it's, we don't leave the building.
I was saying-
It's, yeah, Raceway.
We took that into account.
Oh,
I was
When
like,
we
paranoid.
we heard about that, we saw it.
Yeah.
So we made sure that, yeah, this is going to be used for that, and there's a clear pathway in and out, and that there's a separation here. Is that we lose a few parking spots by doing this, but it was worth the price.
And even the sunny hall, I mean, it just makes it, sometimes Robina gets jammed, really bad if there are events and things going on. It's nice that you have that now you can come in or out through Sunny Hall, which is great.
And that'll be a demand thing, so we want to be conscious of the neighbors.
Of course.
It'd be nice to have that option sometimes.
I don't know who was next, I lost track of it. Here's, dive in.
Well, I guess my question is, have you thought about incorporating some sort of alternative energy?
To actually producing the energy on the site.
Yeah, like, solar, thermal, not, even to some degree.
Typically, when we get to a project of this size, solar on, like rooftop solar, is a challenge because the cost to install and the benefit of it, it becomes more of a demonstration project and less of an actual cost savings. Typically, what we do a lot of college and university work, buildings, and this is actually about the typical building size we work with. When it gets to like either net zero energy or alternative energy, when you get beyond, when you really want to make the savings, it's working with an organization, a utility that has it at scale. So you're buying the energy from those sources. You're not trying to produce it necessarily on your site. But again, right now, the initial thinking on the units is electric, and I believe the electric and natural gas. But again, the efficiency of these units is, they aren't even building them as efficient as they have to be because the code just changed. All the companies are scrambling, trying to change their equipment to meet the demand. Sure.
The teen room and senior room, those rooms dedicated, which I think are great because, I mean, this probably won't help me with my kids are getting older and older now. But one thing I've always felt is that we need more things for more places for teenagers and junior high kids to go. Instead of just going home and playing video games, But what kind of activities can they do besides basketball in the rooms? Like Are they dedicated to those like team rooms?
So
and senior rooms?
we would have, I mean, for the team room, we would have a lot of the things that we actually had at the team room in the arena that we were able to run for a couple of months. I mean, they would have foosball, they could play video games, but they would be all together, so we're okay with that. They could do homework, they could watch TV, they could watch movies, they could play ping pong, they could play basketball. So there's just, you know, a whole number of things, whatever teams want to do, they would be able to do that. The seniors, we would have, some of the most important things for us are obviously the TV, so they can still do the league bowling, which is popular. Nice amenities, you know, like comfortable seating, because cards are a really big deal, bingo, all the things that we do now in a nicer area and maybe more. So more dedicated type games and things that they would have closest door, please.
We were having a conversation earlier about trying to figure out what on earth seniors are going to be doing in 40-something years from now. And I was just envisioning like myself as like an octogenarian just sitting there in VR, just in a solo space. But I'm running all around. But you know, my actual physical embodiment is only, you know, a 4x4 area. So.
And the idea is, I think, really important that they don't just have to stay in these rooms. We actually want them to go out of that's why the hallway isn't just a hallway. That's why that image is so important, because it's really a common space. We want the teens to interact with the seniors. We want the teens to interact with other people. We want the seniors to interact. So, I mean, that's sort of the idea, is that it's all connected and they're not just sitting in a room and only a lot, you know, we're going to let them go at other parts of the building. They don't just have to stay in the team room. They can go to the walking track, they can do these other things. The building's for everybody.
This placement was very intentional. Where our hope is, for starters, a Wii bowling competition between teens and the seniors. But the thinking on this is more active things toward the front, quieter contemplative spaces toward the back. These are, I'm going to come out right now saying this is not the final design. This is not the final design. This is pretty close. And it gets everything that we were really understanding that was needed. But in the layout of this, we'd love to see an opportunity to actually have those two groups interact in some way. We don't know what that is yet, but we'd love to see that opportunity.
Or even a partition that opens, so maybe they could open up and share it for one space or something?
For Nerf dart games. And
The only question I had was, so the aerial view with the trees and stuff like that, so is that the placement that you're anticipating with the trees, or number of plantings that would be there?
Approximately, yeah. Yeah, it's, again, you know, Robina is now, we kind of clean slate there in front of the tennis courts. Now the trees are all, but the idea really here is to create, again, this may change, but to really frame the view, create that open lawn space. We didn't really want any trees right there. And to create that sense of arrival. The trees in the parking lot, those are, aside from being a requirement, it's just a nice way of breaking down the scale of that space.
Part of it, my view, is that it's not just the building and spending time in the building, but it's spending time outside. So I'm hoping that we can have the whole thing landscaped in a way that makes it very appealing and attractive.
Absolutely.
Definitely agree. I saw a hand back here. Yes.
Yeah, wondering about the indoor track, if the lanes on the track would be wide enough for jogging strollers. The reason I ask,
I think so, but
I lived for many years in Ann Arbor where they had 3 track lanes that were wide enough so that moms on maternity leave, stay-at-home moms could meet up and 2 people could walk or jog with their jogging strollers, and there was another lane where people could pass them and run, and that was wonderful. At the YMCA here in Royal Oak, there are only 2 lanes, and it doesn't work to get strollers up there. But I just wonder if there's an opportunity to create a space where families could meet up and use strollers in the winter in the indoor track.
That's a good point. It's a good question. I'll double check. One of the things, we had talked about this initially being 3 lanes, and we didn't want, they would have been 3 narrow lanes. We opted for 2 so they could be wider.
And it's a good point, Natalie, because we saw at the arena last year when it was open for the walking track, we had lots of strollers in there, and we actually have a class called Stroller Striders. We had 7 moms with and they purposely work out with their strollers and their babies and that sort of thing. So I think if it's 2 wide lanes, someone can still pass. It might not be a completely separate lane, but I'm sure we can look into that.
And the plan right now, if I recall correctly, is slightly banked corners.
Yeah.
to just ease that curve, because we know jogging around a gym, it can get tight in the corners, so we don't want it to be where you're running and then you have to do this. But to just angle those up slightly for movement. We're not talking a full-out indoor run here, but jogging, walking, those sorts of things. Yes?
Couple questions. One, what is the barrier between the parking lot and the neighborhood? Is there a wall? Is it fencing?
City of Berkeley code requires they're going to follow their own code. There would be a masonry wall that runs along here, essentially that whole thing.
Okay.
And it is required when it gets past the front of the house to step down.
Okay.
When it comes up to a street, so there's visibility around it. So yeah, it would be a masonry.
So like car lights are not going into people's backyard parties?
Yes, yeah. Again, if you want to see what one looks like that's brand new, come to our parking lot. We had to put one up. The old one was wooden fence and all rickety, and we replaced that with masonry. So when I'm working there at 2 a.m., I know when I turn my headlights on, I'm not bugging anybody, I hope.
And then as far as the use of the community center, so we have the teen room, we have the senior room, we have the walking tracks. Now, is there going to be a cost to people to use these? No.
The cost will be in terms of the programs, just like we have now. I mean, some of those costs may go up a little bit, or some leagues that we would run. The preschool pre-K would obviously have a class, but there's not going to be a membership fee. No, that was something that was really important to us. You know, there's not a pool, there's not these things where you have a membership fee. This is not something that there would be a membership fee. Walking on the track would be free. You know, gym space court, we would have to work out exactly, but I'm sure we would have open time so people can come just play, but then we would also have things. So we have identified ways that we would bring in revenue through the dance classes and the programs, but no, because again, the fitness center, we're not looking at having this enormous gym. We're talking 8-10 pieces of equipment. We want it to be something, a little bit more passive where people can go. So those things would be at no cost.
What would the hours be, or like the?
I would imagine us being open until at least 11 in the evenings, especially running adult league play in those evenings in the fitness area. I would imagine us opening probably anywhere between 7 and 8, and then the weekends I would imagine a similar type, maybe opening a little bit later, 8, 9, but then running until the evenings. And we would be doing, banquets and parties and things, which we do now. We stay till 10, but I would imagine us staying open until 11.
Yes. I have a few questions, just some thoughts. Beside my overall excitement, so pardon me if I seem too excited about this, I like seeing this space worked over. I've been staring at this space for a decade and a half, 2 decades now, just looking at different ways to make this happen. Some thoughts on that. The building in the center of the property, putting that retaining wall up against the residence, as opposed to having the 2-story back of the building, if you will, that's shielding the residents from all the activity that we're looking to take place in this area, say Berkeley days or even the lights that we're talking about. If you were to start your car in that center park lane, your lights would indeed go directly into those houses, the barrier wall or not. Perhaps if you were in the closest one, that wouldn't happen. But the other ones certainly seem like they would. Just looking at this, and we've tried it in some different ways, by putting that building in the center of the space, you're cutting off that large open area that we have between the track and the baseball fields and the tennis courts, where we would have our building kind of shielding the residents from all the activity, including Berkeley days, that would be taking place in that area. So if we had our building shielding the residents, and then retained all that open space right there, it seems that it would be a lot more park-like in the atmosphere, instead of having the large block wall 2 stories abutted up to the side of the track right there, like right in the middle of the property type of deal. As opposed to that would be a good shield point to keep the neighbors in the residential private properties shielded from the activities that are happening there, more or less from their private properties. They can obviously come over there when they wanted to, but because this is happening directly in a neighborhood, and we're looking at expanding this and having a lot more activity happening there, yet we're really opening up everybody's property directly to all the activity, just from a spatial standpoint. And then that big block wall facing the west, that just shuts off all of our evening light when we're hoping to use this the most. That seems, I haven't really looked at it closely, but that seems like just a large 2-story block wall along the whole west. is that correct? All the windows kind of east and north?
This is a two-story portion here. This is single-story. This is two-story portion here and here. And this stretch that goes through here, this is the high two-story core space. The idea would be able to have windows on both sides.
Back in that second story, fitness, whatever else was happening on that second story up there?
Again, the challenge we have, the biggest challenge we have, thank you, Oakland County Water Commission.
Oh, yeah.
We're putting it
Setbacks
right
on
here.
everything.
Again, there were a lot of, we proposed to the CAC a number of different options on that one, and the challenge with keeping the building in that existing location is the complete loss of any community center, recreation center activities for a little over a year. The whole thing would have to shut down, and with no other space to put it.
Plus, I think we looked at too, the flow of the parking lot, having it on one side rather than a part here and a part here. It reduces the traffic of people walking through.
Well, it limits
to
it
different
too.
areas. It
So it limited it, because you want a bigger building, which you need more parking for, there wasn't enough parking. And then it didn't solve the issue of that, the fact that they're disjointed and that traffic flow thing. So I think that was a big part. And then the other part was the tennis court.
Yeah, we just couldn't move back. But I think though, with putting the building, over to the other side, you may be helping the Hurley lights that are reflecting into people's properties now.
That's true too.
I don't think that building will stop that. I live directly on the other side of the school, and that whole school doesn't stop any of the actual lights.
Gotcha.
Part of the changeover too is that the people directly to the east of there, they now actually gain a lot more evening sun now too, because they're sitting in the shadow of the existing building. So they may get some Berkeley days light, but for every other day of the year, they get a lot more sunlight too.
And I actually invite folks, if you feel free to drive into our office's parking lot in the evening. The two things you'll notice that there is a landscape, there's a narrow band of landscape between the parking and the wall, but also if you come in the evening after the parking lot lights are on, when you drive in, the two things you're going to notice is, boy, that parking lot's not really well lit. It's because all the lights are LED and they're on a two-stage system that when nothing is moving, they drop down to a very dim level, and as soon as, when I walk out to my car at 2 a.m., they come on as I walk past them. So, but the cutoff on the lights are low enough in their design, so it minimizes the light throw over that wall. We really put thought into that, and that's again something we're trying from a dark sky approach, is to really minimize that light pollution going up. Yeah, you said you had a couple other thoughts on that.
A handful of them. Getting back to that indoor gym area, there are some indoor items. I know that isn't our final schematic we'll be going with, but like the gym, we talked about seating. Where, I looked at your other picture you had there, where, I've seen some gyms like this, similar to the one in Huntington Woods. Where is the seating actually, and what?
We haven't picked the final spot for it yet. Currently, the bleachers are showing on this end. I'd prefer to see them over here. And we're probably talking something that's only 3 tiers. There's no need to go to a high school level, a dozen tiers. 3 tiers over the length of this wall, you'll easily see 100 plus for any activity. Yes, that's the place. Yeah, they'd be collapsible.
Right, on both sides.
Yeah, you do a block of maybe 60 over here and 60 over here.
Yeah.
And with the ability to, the curtain it would be a drop down, not a side to side. Again, take a look at Huntington Woods, it's basically that same layout.
Yeah. While we're in this space still, I know we talked about the tables and using it. What about, say, for a town hall type of event for us to take place in here for our own use, as opposed to using, say, the school district's auditorium there? What kind of people could we fit in here if we did row seating type of thing for a town hall event or something like that?
As many as the fire marshal would allow. I've got to think you could probably do 400. Again, at that point, it's just going to come down to egress. You can only put as many as you can get out safely.
And then another thought on that outside, there's a lot of maintenance on all that concrete out there to keep in great shape there, especially in the winter. I didn't see any covered access for our seniors entering in and out of that building, from any drop-off point at all.
That was the goal behind this expanded drop-off area, and by putting the handicap parking at this location, is to get the shortest distance. We've wrestled with that one. We cannot move the building closer to the parking by 1 foot, at least as of right now, because of that drain. So the goal is to try to minimize that distance, provide covering when you get to the building, but the ability currently, it's one of the few places I've ever seen this where that awning comes all the way out to the street at the current senior center.
What about the other entrance though? Could there something be done on that other that was covered?
In this area, it would require going from a sidewalk to a street over here.
I was looking at the other side, I didn't realize it was, okay,
That's where
never
the
mind.
concession stand is.
Yeah, that's just
sorry.
that big paved area.
I thought it was that little short area. I gotcha.
But yeah, and that, again, it's something we wrestled with. We couldn't solve all of them, but the goal was to get people as close as possible. If there's an opportunity when we dig deeper, as it was poured into the budget, there's an opportunity in creating an area here with heated pavement. So it always remains thawed in bad weather. That would be a direction we'd want to take. Yes?
The Huntington Woods Center has the garage door that can be opened and everything can expand like with a tent. Well, is that an option for us?
It's a possibility. Again, with this design, it would probably be something over in this area. But it would just be a matter of changing out the glass to an opening with the garage door area.
You see the overhang really well here. And on the other one, there's a dotted line that had the turn radius of a smart bus, specifically phased for that, so.
Yeah, you can't see it here, but there's a dotted line that runs right there. Yeah. And the goal would be not to have it be open to everybody, but to the buses for controlled drop-off.
So then our projected maintenance there, obviously we're looking at increasing the programming, right? New things we can do. Are we looking at adding to staff in the future or even our maintenance?
Yeah, so I would
to
see, I
take
mean,
care of it?
obviously we don't know all those specifics right now, but I have talked about this, obviously we've thought about it a little bit, and talked about it with Matt and Darshell in these meetings. I would see us probably adding at least 1 full-time staff for the time being, but our part-time staff is where our numbers would have to increase pretty substantially. You know, obviously a building of this size in the evenings, we run with 1 right now, we would need 2 people. We would probably need an additional like part-time maintenance staff to go along with our 1 full-time maintenance person. So yeah, I mean, I think those part-time numbers would have to go up, and we would just have to justify them with also revenue going up with the programs that we're running. So, and then one of the biggest things would be, one of the things that we want to do, which also would be one of our biggest revenue earners, is to have a state licensed preschool and pre-K classes during the day, because I think that there's still more of a need for that in the community, and we hear that all the time. Yes. I know that I have 2 preschool age kids, and I think that that's something that we can really do. Huntington Woods books up within the first day that they open their, you know, it'd be 15 to 16 kids. But looking at other centers, that's one of the easiest ways to actually make revenue.
Any other last couple closing questions and comments?
I
Yes.
have a question about the gym space. So it could be divided up, so if someone had like a little banquet and would somebody playing sports next door, or like how would the division of that work? Like would it be divided to get 2 things going on simultaneously, or how?
Gym use, banquet use, not.
Yeah.
But you could do like 2 different sports.
Yeah, that makes more
But
sense.
probably not gym, like you wouldn't have someone having a catered banquet and gym at the same time.
And well, actually, when you get to that, if you're going to do a large event, you probably also close off the track, because the last thing you want to do is hit somebody running above you.
Yeah,
While
that would
you're
be
eating.
awesome.
While you're eating.
But yeah, but you could run, you know, so a lot of the stuff we do is for youth. I mean, they don't need that whole space, so you could do, or even like pick up basketball games, usually just do half of it, even older people, you know, so they get too tired to go back. So those types of things is why you would cut it in.
That makes sense. So I was wondering about the bathrooms, because it's also locker rooms, so we're having an nice event, there's people in there using the locker room, that may be a little
Yeah,
odd.
again, you wouldn't
So,
do both
know.
at once. And we planned this, that the restrooms would be in the front portion, the locker
Yeah,
areas would be
I
in the
like
back. And then for other activities, that's why there's a separate set of restrooms over here,
Yeah.
just to keep the uses different. Who wants to? Go for it. Who gets the last one?
Well, I just have just a quick question. Fully understanding and completely agreeing with the fact that, I don't think the current one can stay closed for a year. I'm just curious that, did the location change cause any restrictions in the design itself? Do we, in other words, do we lose anything as a result of changing that location?
No, well, the issue right now, again, I'm glad I put this in here. This is pretty much the limit of what you can build on this side. It can't get much wider. And the amount of space between the property line and the easement on this side is a few feet wider than it is from the fence to the easement on this side. As we get further in design, if we can negotiate, there is no assigned easement for the 12-town grade. It is the 50-foot width of Robina. If we can get further into it, that opportunity comes up to have them assign an easement that's based on their engineering. We might gain a few feet. We don't know yet. They won't even look at it until later at the county. I would say we haven't lost anything. We actually went back to aerial photographs back to 1942. And there was never anything on this site. I'm assuming at one point there was farming. But best we can tell since the 40s, nothing has been built over here. Over here, the underground foundations that hold up that building are a mess. They're huge, thick concrete beams that run underground with steel in them. Typically an ice arena gets a frost ball, even if you turn it off in the summer months. Over decades, it just builds this almost like a permafrost that heaves the ground. Our structural engineers look at that and they're like, we don't really want to build on that if we can help it. A parking lot, you have to dig up anyway for the retainage. But we really didn't want to put a building back on that site.
But like the building itself, like you didn't lose like another community room or something
No,
like
No,
that?
no, we actually, if you recall, we started talking, originally we were talking about putting it in the same spot. So as we got a building together, it was after we got kind of a building square, we went, well, wait a minute, could it go and could it fit here then?
Okay.
And so we had building first, location second.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And there would be, if money magically just appeared, it could get bigger to the west, but the restrictions are really minimal.
Okay.
What is the current square footage if you do the ice arena with the community center right now?
What you've got right now?
What we have right now, that, I mean,
40, it's like, yeah, I was gonna say it's like 44,000 square feet.
all right, and we're going to 38,
38,
and then is that including, do you count the track?
you do.
As part of that, okay,
We
I just
did,
wasn't sure.
because you gotta pay to put it in, we wanted to make sure we were
I just
covering
want to
that.
make sure.
So yeah, so the space is almost the same. The swap out really is year-round use for everybody in space, in the same space that was the ice.
Yeah.
Okay. You're on both committees. You get the last one.
Okay, I'll talk about two different things, okay? What about the space where our current center's at now and the ice arena, so that makes two things. What's gonna happen to that area?
Oh, all of this right here,
Yes.
there's from Sunny Knoll all the way over to Oxford. When this building is finished, this building will come down, we'll demolish it. That was also in the budget, the cost to remove it. They will excavate that entire area, take everything down there out, put in stormwater containment system, and pave that parking lot. So it will become the parking lot. Right? Basically, that parking lot is almost the exact size of the building now.
So will the new community center be open without that parking, or will it wait until, is that contingent on that parking lot?
Our goal is that this will open, and it will have limited parking, there's no question there. It'll be open, so it'll be a few weeks, a few months tops.
Okay.
And As soon as that's up and running, this can come down. They may even start on the ice arena part first. I don't quote me on that, I don't know, that's not my job to determine. But
It's
this,
not a significant amount of time.
no, the hope is it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
Because the nice part is, they'll be mobilized, they'll be out in the field, ready to go. As soon as that's done, you can have a soft grand opening, take that out, and then probably in the fall, the whole thing. Grand opening.
Matt, are we gonna have to look at Berkeley Days for 1 year then, being moved somewhere else while the construction's going?
I'm gonna guess yes, but we're gonna try to work around as many of our events as we can.
Well, I want to thank everyone. I hope this is fun. We had a blast. This was a lot of fun. And I like actually having a job where I can go home and say, yeah, kids, I got out the colored pencils and the tracing paper, and I had fun today.
You made us happy.
And Stantec has been amazing to work with.
Well, thank you. So yeah, thank you. I'm excited. I want the folks at Huntington Woods to look at this and go, oh, how did we get that?
Be jealous.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Delete that from the video, please. I don't want Mayor Paul calling me up. But thank you again. Again, this was an opportunity to run this by you, to understand things that we may need to change about the message, about the conversation, about the design. So any small tweaks or changes that may come out of this, the goal is to get them in place quickly, so this can go to the community at large, hopefully.
Like the third week of January,
Yeah,
we're looking at
January.
right now. We don't have an exact date, but we're looking at that week of January 15th. It obviously won't be on the 15th, offices are closed, but hopefully they're one of those dates just after that.
And the vote would happen in May, is the plan?
On our current track, yes. We're trying to get as close to the CAC recommendations as we can.
Sure.
Well, how many, like, town hall meetings will there be, or whatever you want to call them, open houses?
Well, I want to have at least one big event and then a lot of community conversations after.
Okay.
Communication and education is going to be.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
talked to you about doing kind of a grassroots type of thing from the CAC.
But I certainly want a large, everyone sees it at the same time, everyone gets the same message at the same time
Yes.
type of event, and that's what we're looking at for the week of the 15th.
And we would have, photos that people could stroll and kind of see and things like that. So it would just be the presentation. They could take a look at this and have this conversation.
Where's our building?
Yeah. so
We're
we're
right
going there
across
with the wall.
Turn down Oxford. Our parking lot's directly across from Oxford Towers parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah, right across from Taco Bell. That's where I had lunch today.
Picking up your friend burrito there.
Thank you again for your time this evening.
Thanks for
And thank you for the involvement.
Now, while they're doing that, I do want to cover, cost to homeowners. During the CAC conversation, we talked about an 18 million, 15-year bond. If you recall, the cost of that was going to be between 1.2 and 3.3 mils. For an average homeowner, which is a $75,000 taxable value, that's right at the middle of the span of our homes. This would be about between $91 and $250 annually in millage, and it was going to be about $3,400 over the 15-year span. Obviously, we're now down to 15.2, 15.3. I don't know how tightly we'll mirror that. We'll talk with the bond council, but even at 16 million, you're talking about less than $250 per year per average resident, because that was going to yield 18 million. So we again, working with Stantec, trying to keep it as cost effective for the homeowner, so they still saw the value in what they're getting versus what the annual payout is. And I think you asked it, or somebody asked it, no membership fee to get in. So nothing all that different than the way we structure our programs now. So you don't pay a thing to walk in the building, you don't pay a thing to get in.
And wasn't it more than that, Matt? Wasn't it like $400?
Yeah, now, if you recall, we had a parallel conversation about roads and sanitary, roads and sewers. Now, that was still traveling towards the question as well. So the total ask, if you say yes to both, will be more than that. But the specific to which.
And is that gonna happen in May also, or is that?
Yeah, again, the recommendation was to do both at the same
Yeah,
time.
I think we wanted to try to do it all at once, we didn't keep that.
Oh, right.
No, for sure.
I want to kind of keep us running along the stated agenda here. We talked about, I'm grateful to have the discussion here. Do want to make sure that we open up to public comment. We have some wonderful people here in the audience. Is there anything that went unanswered, went unasked? Anything from the public? Ms. Morris?
I have a few questions. As far as like the track, is there going to be a membership fee? I couldn't hear everything.
No, nothing for like that. So that is, you come right in, you go right up, and you start walking. So likewise with any of the equipment that's up there, that's not going to be something that you'll ever get charged for outside of the tax obligation.
All right, well, that's great.
Yeah, only the programs, there will probably be an extra fee for that.
Right. And my other question is, I know that you're not planning on doing, I'm assuming you're not planning on doing a pool or an ice arena, but from what I saw, that eliminated any space for anything like that in the future. Am I right? Did I miss something?
And from a parking standpoint, yes, but you could have, there is still space on the other side of the Rabina, the Telton drains, where in the future, if we saw fit to do it, a building could go. But again, you're going to have real parking constrictions there, and that's going to be problematic unless we find somewhere else to put a bunch of cars. But any of the areas, I guess you could, any of the areas that aren't built on, you could consider them expansion zones. But you're right, in the initial preface, as of right now, there would be no plans for that right now.
But you're not leaving room in the future for it?
Any of those parking lots could end up hosting a building in the future one day.
They could be converted. The parking lot could be converted to another use.
But realistically, there's not enough parking.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
way
challenge.
people use vehicles now, there's not enough parking to support it.
And I can tell you, as a resident of Huntington Woods, I don't even drive my car to the rec center during the summer because there is no parking. And when you're there for like a city meet, there's no parking on any of the streets. It's like take the football game times 2. So the goal here is a certain amount of parking with modern codes we have to provide for the activities we're required to. When we factor that in, and with the limitation of the 12 town drains that runs right through there, that there's no way we can move. It slices that into spaces that just aren't big enough to work with. When we put the original, we provided some original schemes to the Community Advisory Committee, I think 5 different approaches. The only way that we could actually provide space to do this and put in, say, a pool or an ice rink was a significant cut in the amount of parking, which then caused a problem because we couldn't get enough parking for those activities, or the elimination of the tennis courts, which were grant money and can't be eliminated, or it causes all sorts of other problems.
They're extremely popular.
And you don't want that extra spillover onto the streets either. It's also to, I think, minimize that.
Yeah.
Too.
How far in the future do those tennis courts have to remain the way they are? In other words, how far is there the opportunity in the future to use a portion of the tennis courts?
I don't, once they're up there, when we get the grant money to use them, we can never, unless we can move them somewhere else, and as long as they go back down, from what I understood.
The same amount.
It has to be the same amount of space, but there was nowhere for us to move them to.
But again, given their popularity, we would probably be looking at one of the parking, building a building on one of the parking lots. If the projections on our, that people are going to become less reliant on vehicles, if those come to fruition, then it opens up the space to other buildings and other uses, pool, ice arena. Again, if Berkeley residents of the future see fit to fund those items.
One more question.
Sure.
that grassy area just north of the parking lot wall, was that all private property, or is that, it looked like an awful lot of grassy area. I'm just wondering what that is.
That's someone's
I think that's the backyards of those houses right
Yeah,
there.
probably so. If I'm thinking of correctly, the houses
Yeah.
that are front Catalpa, that's their backyard.
That whole big area.
That's not,
Yeah.
it's not our
It's a very
space.
big backyard.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go down Ravine, you'll see that's where the current fence sits right now.
Okay?
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. All right, if anything comes to mind, if any discussion items, if any, I'd be the negative Nelly in the room, any points of apprehension pop up in your heads, anything that we think it would make a better case to the residents, something that we can preemptively answer before they have to ask it.
That they brought the price down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just getting back on Ms. Morris's situation with the pool. All of the surveys that we've done here in the last decade and a half, I'm not aware of any of them that the pool wasn't the number one item on the survey. And I know every one of those surveys, and I know the numbers on every one of them. I'm not aware of any surveys that have been taken here in the city that had to do with recreation, where the pool was not the number one item on the list. So when we're going forward trying to sell this with no capital item at 15 million, that's going to be an extremely difficult sell with no capital item on this building.
Well, we also have the numbers to support how much money it would cost them in the, not only in their taxes, the increase to put that pool in, but the membership. You don't just get to use the pool for free. It also includes another $300 to $400 a year on top of that.
It's a question we will absolutely have to answer.
And once
Why
they,
no
once they
pool?
hear
Why
those
no
numbers,
ice arena?
I mean, the people that I've had personal conversations with, why didn't we do a pool? And I tell them, here are the numbers that they gave us, plus you're gonna pay for a membership on top of this. Oh.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what happened in the
nobody wants
CAC.
So it's like another $1,000 a year between the taxes and the membership fees to have a pool.
Yeah, I've heard no pool, you're a fool, repeated, and so we actually have to make a case as to why this is our best bet for the time right now. Yeah. So I think
it's a good point, it's something in the education.
That's what we need to look at.
Basically, like the same argument was about not having the ice arena. It came down to cost.
Yeah.
And those CAC
millions more.
Yeah, but there's a difference. The ice arena was like at 1% in those surveys, used by a very small amount of individuals in this city. Extremely minute amount
I
of
would
individuals.
disagree as a hockey mom.
I know, compared to the amount of people that would have been using the pool, and that's why those numbers were they were in every survey.
3-month thing.
But once you put the numbers in front of people and they realize, I mean,
The ice arena would have
it
brought
just
more money.
doesn't, we'll be taxed out of our homes. Every one of us, for the majority,
Plus
okay.
the water bill went up.
We're going to tax
That's
out
why I think
of for a pool.
it's an absolute point of apprehension. I think a lot of people are going to have to overcome by asking the question, having the conversation. Yes, I think you're right there.
Yeah,
We
I
are
think-
planning a splash pad and the new layout for Merchant / Oxford Park. We hope that having a community space, I almost call it a community watering hole as if I lived in Mayberry, but having a community gathering space that is a water-oriented activity, especially for the summertime, we're hoping that softens that blow a little bit, but we're going to have that conversation over and over and over again.
And it's not money. You can stress to people, how much it's going to up our value of our property. And Berkeley is getting to be a very, very desirable place to live. And anybody will tell you that, or you can read it in the paper, or hear it on the radio. But it's just, it's what we need. We have to get across to people that we need this to enhance our city. And people really want it. It's just, convincing them to pay for it will be the problem. But I think they will. I think people will really, will go with this right away.
Any guttural reactions to the number 15.2 million?
I thought it came right in the middle of what you had projected to us, at least. I looked at it and I think I'm pleased with it.
Yeah.
How much would it cost to, not restore, but to make the building we have?
Which, the ice arena?
No, not the ice
Yeah,
arena,
the ice
just the
arena's not
community
viable.
center itself. to bring that up to even
I think
half
she
of what
had
we're
him
asking.
Yeah,
those numbers in,
yeah,
because that's
I will
what
have to go back and get that number for you, but then you're really only left with, how many hundreds, how many thousand square feet?
That's what I mean, like to have all the repairs.
Yeah.
18,000 square feet.
All the
But you
repairs.
still have the structural limitations of that
Right,
building.
but that's gonna be a high number, dollar amount to bring that, you know, to fix
Right,
it.
True.
right.
You
And you
know.
still have,
And it doesn't
you would have
solve
to
a lot
raise
of
the
the,
roof.
it doesn't
Right.
resolve a lot of the issues.
You have about half the space
Yeah.
that we're
Right.
talking
But it's a good question, it's one that has
Yeah.
been talked about,
Yeah.
and they do have that number.
Right,
Will
we
ask
were
us
gonna
to.
take it to her.
Yeah, they will.
Because we took it to her and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and I
When
mean,
you
every
can
meeting's
see
in,
gaps
but-
where the sun is coming through the building, on the
bad.
walls.
Right, I just, for that dollar amount, just to have as a comparison, if it's gonna be 12 million
Sure.
to
Yeah, I see what you're
And
saying.
then-
fix the whole ceiling or whatever, you know, or
And they were, it
heating
was
system.
close, it was close enough where it was like, and it didn't solve the issue. It
The
didn't-
foundation
It wouldn't
is still
solve a
the
lot of
issue.
the issues that are.
Right.
Well, and it's not up to
hard.
code now either, so we'd have to do so much
Yeah.
stuff. Plus the
We
foundation,
were,
he
it wasn't
said
even a,
wasn't, the
wasn't even a
foundation was
viable option.
sinking, which is why the
from
walls
our
are
standpoint
separated.
At all.
Yeah,
Right.
so
Like
like
the
the
walls
walls
of
of
it.
it.
Yeah.
Worn out.
Yeah.
Are we putting together a game plan for if this bond does not pass? What are we doing with the property and the buildings? Any type of medium, short term,
Our
something?
motto is. keep
I don't have it yet.
so little.
I don't have it yet.
You know, and that's really.
If not this, then what?
Yeah.
It's probably just the community center on that space. The arena still past its useful life, and will probably just be demoed and
We're
converted to some
gonna
kind of.
compile a list of
Yes.
maybe some of those big ticket items that you guys are talking about that we would need to have to get accomplished to keep the current one, you know,
Going,
yeah,
yeah.
you know, useful for the foreseeable future, so
Right.
folks can
Yeah.
barter back and forth
Yeah.
in their thoughts on, you know,
Absolutely.
exactly what you're talking about right there.
Yeah.
So if this does fail, we're gonna have to try to repair what we have, and
Yeah.
these are the costs that
Well, because
could be
something has
associated
to
with
happen
that.
anyway.
Yeah,
I
what's
mean,
plan A?
Something is going to
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
happen.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Say,
No,
They give us some of
absolutely.
this, or this is what we're
Yeah.
gonna still have to do.
Right,
Right.
Is what I'm thinking.
Realistically, the shell of the arena comes down.
yeah.
So either we're probably just left with open space and that, where that is, and some form of renovation for the 18,000 square foot.
Yeah, literally.
Did you look at
Yeah, no, they definitely, but part of the application needs to be the comparison of.
Yeah.
If
We
not
don't do
this,
this,
then
this is what we
one
have
way
to
or
do.
another.
So
We
one
kick
way.
this can down the road.
Oh, yeah.
One way or
find
another.
out. That's one of the reasons why we
We
did
heavily
the
talked
60
about
million,
it,
or the 15.2 to 16 million, whatever we asked for. If nothing changes and we think we can move forward with something close to that number, we'll get rid of bond council, they'll start to give us some numbers.
If it's gonna be, fix the roof and foundation.
All right? Of course, not the end of the conversation. If anything comes up, if you think of anything, you know how to get a hold of all of us. And then, again, any tweaks we can make to the public unveiling, we look forward to getting to do so. So thank you so much for those that came, for those who were invited. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate the
Good job.
invite.